Welcome to today's edition of 3 Minute Halacha. Are you allowed to shovel snow on Shabbat? We've discussed earlier the idea that shoveling snow may involve a question of tircha, of unnecessary exertion, of an uvdin dechol, of something that is a weekday activity, or even something that's referred to as a zilzul Shabbos, something that disgraces the very nature of Shabbos itself. But there are circumstances where people feel it might be necessary. Should this be permitted or not? If we're in a situation where there is so much snow that it's difficult to walk, the ideal situation is to have a non-Jewish person shovel the snow, not with a snowblower, but in the old-fashioned way of a shovel. If possible, this should always be arranged before Shabbos with a non-Jew to shovel, should it be necessary, as many do, having a service, and that service decides when to come and when not to come. It's not a direct command, a direct instruction of a Jewish person. If one didn't make arrangements before Shabbos, then it's possible in situations where it's difficult to walk, they have a non-Jew shovel on Shabbos, but there shouldn't be any discussion of financial arrangements. Shovel my snow and I will pay you, but wait until after Shabbos for those kinds of arrangements. And that's clear from Orach Chaim, Siman Reish Vav, Sif Vav. If a non-Jew is not available to shovel snow on Shabbos, the general halachic consensus is that it's still preferable to avoid shoveling by a Jew. Some do permit, for example, that a Jewish person can walk on the sidewalk and kick snow to either side as he goes, while others will also prohibit this. See Orach Chaim, Reish Tet Zayin, Sif Yud Aleph, and also the Mishnah Berurah there, Nun Aleph for halachic precedence. Of course, as I had mentioned earlier, using salt on Shabbos is much preferable and permitted, and therefore to salt a sidewalk would be permitted if that is possible to avoid any kind of danger. In addition, sweeping the snow aside using a broom might be a halachically preferable alternative. Nevertheless, there are those who do permit shoveling. The minority opinion, for example, the Nishmas Shabbos in the second volume in Siman Reish Mem Zayin, says when absolutely necessary, and the snow shovel in that case is not considered muktzah because it's a kli shemalachto leheter, a utensil whose intended use would be a Shabbos permitted activity. This is only, of course, only talking about a scenario where people are shoveling on paved walkways. It's not permitted ever to shovel or to sweep dirt paths because there we have an additional concern of ashvuye gumos, that you may be smoothing out the ground, which is part of a malacha of choresh, of plowing. In terms of the question of can you shovel snow, even have a non-Jew shovel snow, obviously within an Eruv is where it could be permitted. Outside the Eruv, though, would always be a greater problem as well. The bottom line is, can one shovel snow on Shabbos? It's best to avoid it whenever possible. Depending on the degree of hazard, however, it may be permitted to engage a non-Jew, or in certain circumstances where there is no choice and it is truly hazardous, to rely on a lenient position that it might even be permitted by a Jewish person. Again, to salt the snow on Shabbos would be permitted, and therefore that is typically the best option in extreme circumstances.